Good Tuesday afternoon, everybody. I'm meteorologist Tim Pandajis here with your tropical update on this September 1st, the first day of meteorological autumn, which runs all the way through the end of November. We're entering now the peak month of the hurricane season. Again, June 1st through November 30th. September is the most active. And starting off the month, we have two systems out there. One that's currently named, that's Tropical Storm Nana, and another tropical depression that's leaving or moving away from the eastern seaboard of the United States. All right, let's talk about climatology in terms of the hurricane season. 34%, over a third of all named storms happen in the month of September. It is extremely active. All of the atmospheric conditions are at their prime: warm ocean waters, moist upper levels of the atmosphere, and weak wind shear. That all contributes to an increase in tropical activity. Let's look back at past seasons. We'll just go from since 2015, so the past 5 hurricane seasons. In September, there's been 17 hurricanes either that have developed or have been present in the Atlantic Basin during the month. The most notable of which, you'll recognize a lot of these names, especially since it's been since 2015, Irma, Maria, Matthew, Dorian, and Florence. This is Category 1 to Category 5 hurricanes that are listed here. Now let's go back further. Since 2000, that number shoots up to 82 hurricanes that have developed or been present in the Atlantic Basin in the last 19 seasons. So a very active time out there, most of which developing in the main development region of the Atlantic, which this time of the year is very, very prevalent for storms coming off the coast of Africa and then developing in that part of the Atlantic. So Nana has formed, and once again, it is the earliest occurrence of this letter, N, in history. And since we've actually been naming storms since the 1950s. Previous record holder was Nate back on September 6th, again a reference to 2005. Here's a look at the names so far. We have cleared 14 names, 2 columns here with the formation of Nana, and in fact we might even see Omar develop in the next 12 to 24 hours with Tropical Depression 15 that's moving away from the eastern seaboard. Now we've gotten a lot of questions, and Evan talked about this yesterday in the video, that what happens if we use another 7 names and we run out of the names here for 2020? Well, we resort to the Greek alphabet. The only other time that's happened was in the extremely active season in 2005. There were 27 named storms that season, so we used the Greek alphabet. Here's the list of Greek names, another 21 here if in fact we did have to resort to this, and the way things are going, it looks like we may very well get to that point, maybe even by the end of this month. We'll see. So let's look at climatology, because Nana is forecast to become the 5th hurricane of the season as it moves towards Belize, Guatemala, and as well as Honduras in the next 2 to 3 days. Typically, when we look back from 1966 to 2009, we get the 5th hurricane on or around October 7th. So probably around a month ahead of schedule in terms of climatology overall. In terms of the season and predictions that were issued right around the beginning of the season or even before the season started, let's look at how we're doing. So we're going off of the NOAA predictions, and that was for 19 to 25 named storms. We've had 14 so far, 7 to 11 hurricanes. So far there's been 4. And major hurricanes, Category 3 or greater, the only one we've seen so far was Hurricane Laura, so 1, and the prediction is for 3 to 6. So potentially a lot more activity to go here before the season is over. Here's a look at the basin overall. Let's talk about the named systems, or the systems that are out there. We'll start off with the one closest to the United States, even though this will be zero impact event for the United States. It is Tropical Depression number 15, winds at 35 miles per hour, and it is moving in a good direction to the east, away from the U.S. East Coast. When we switch things up here and show you the visible satellite, it's not doing all that well in terms of any dynamics or any atmospheric structure here, because you can see that's evident of some wind shear coming in from the west to northwest, blowing the cloud tops or the thunderstorm convection activity and offsetting it from the center to the eastern side of the storm, kind of exposing the low-level center here that's moving off towards the east-northeast. So that could lead to some weakening, but Hurricane Center says, maybe it'll just jump up to 40-mile-an-hour winds, giving it that tropical storm status and gaining a name, and that would be Omar. But notice where it's moving even well to the north of Bermuda into the open Atlantic, and then weakening quickly thereafter by the end of the week. It's very similar to Kyle, if you remember Kyle. You may not, because it was a forgettable storm. That's exactly what that storm's going to be like. And in fact, it does gain a name which would be Omar. All right, now let's jump over to Nana. This is in the exact same area of development that we saw Laura just about a week and a half ago. It's looking quite healthy as well, with a flare-up of thunderstorm activity around the center. We're looking at the infrared imagery here, and we use this pretty much every video to show you the cloud top temperatures. The colder the cloud tops, the stronger the thunderstorm activity, and that is indicated by the shades of black and white there. Cold cloud tops, stronger thunderstorm development near the center there as it's moving on off towards the west. Switching things up on the visible satellite imagery, it's looking pretty healthy here. We're seeing the outflow cirrus aloft and good inflow at the surface. So that means it's ventilating properly, and it's over an area of the ocean that is not going to be stopping it from developing at all in the coming days. Here's the official forecast track from the National Hurricane Center. Right now with winds of 50 miles an hour, gusts to 65, moving on off towards the west, and it is on heading towards Belize, Guatemala, and Honduras, potentially, or likely, I'd say, of becoming a hurricane before it makes landfall here by early Thursday morning as a Category 1 storm, at least on the official forecast. There are tropical storm watches up for all of the coastal areas here for rough surf and strong winds, at least of tropical storm force as we get on towards the later part of this week. Here's a look at sea surface temperatures in the mid-80s, all right? And it's going to be on that track all the way to the west. In fact, just before landfall, potentially that water gets even warmer, so it could lead to a period of intensification. This is also in an area of ocean heat content that is extremely high. You see the shades of orange and red here. That means that the warm surface temperatures that are on the skin of the ocean actually extend down to a depth. So when storms move over that warm water and they mix it up, something called upwelling, it doesn't mix up cooler waters from below to the surface like usually would happen if the warm waters were only right at the skin of the ocean. These waters extend down, in some cases up and over 100 meters, and that heat potential is quite high, especially for the next 24 hours. That's why I think we may see this jump to a hurricane status ahead of the actual forecast timeline, which would be on Thursday before it makes landfall. I think we see that before then. Global models have had a terrible time this season picking out and deciphering what storms will do. Here's an example. The GFS ensemble, okay, we're looking at 21 members of the model run 21 times, tweaking the initialization here just a little bit. Look at how off it is at initializing where the center of the storm is, that as of the Hurricane Center plotting it is to the north of where all of the members are showing it to be. So already it's starting off on the wrong foot in that forecast trend forward. But pretty good indications by all the other global models too, and even the short range, that this will continue on a westward track and make its way towards the Yucatan Peninsula as we get towards the later part of this week, and then eventually fizzling out, encountering higher terrain. On top of that, we are heading towards the peak of the season, September 10th, so anything coming off the coast of Africa needs to be watched extremely carefully. This is an African easterly wave right here, and this is heading towards the west. Once it hits the open Atlantic there, very warm waters, atmospheric conditions are pretty decent, and the amount of Saharan air or Saharan dust is quite low too. So short term, nothing, it's still over land, but once it makes its way over the open waters of the Atlantic, that jumps up to 50% chance of development within the next 5 days. And if you're wondering what the next name is after Omar, which would potentially become Tropical Depression 15, will become of Tropical Depression 15, well, that's Paulette. And we could certainly see Paulette developing here by the time we get towards the end of the week. All right, that's the latest update today on your Tuesday. Have a question? Don't be afraid to ask. Find me on social media on all the platforms, Facebook, Instagram, and on Twitter. We'll see you again tomorrow afternoon.